March has no alcohol in his diet, has very strict times he eats. He only eats meat and fish.
Happy.
And actually, can I just say, I think this is very depressing. You know, life is short. I don't know why people have... And lots of my friends who go to the gym, they're absolutely obsessed with only having chicken and rice and barely any sauce on it. It's just, what's the point, you know?
You make a good point. Life is short. What do they...
And so is Tom Cruise.
YOLO, you only live once.
Yeah, YOLO.
But then you can live your life as you want to live it. So if you want to live it the healthiest person ever in the whole world, then, you know, that's your one life.
But you raised a great point in the meeting today, which is 64 old anymore? It's not, sort of 62. It's not old, is it?
No.
62 is the new 40.
Yeah. I mean, the thing is, though, Tom Cruise is a multi-millionaire. Doesn't he want to just, like, relax and enjoy his life now? Why is he still getting up at 5:30 in the morning to go to the gym and eating chicken breasts with no sauce on it?
Yeah.
OK, Tom Cruise is another one of these driven people. Tom Cruise is absolutely 100% driven to drive a fighter pilot aeroplane. I mean, how could you actually learn to drive a plane? He is so driven, he is so disciplined, and when you're that disciplined, you know about blood, alcohol, you know, sugar spikes. I bet you he drinks vinegar. Bet you any money he's into gut health. I'm telling you, gut health is in. Everyone's talking about gut health.
But what's the point when you're 62?
No, 62.
I'm hoping when I'm 62 that I'll just chill out.
He doesn't.
No way.
He doesn't need the money
Eat some
either. He
donuts.
can just chill. Like,
No, he doesn't want to chill. He so doesn't want to chill. I tell you what, in Hollywood, because my husband's a film producer, in Hollywood, you know when they retire? They're either 90 or they're dead.
Yeah.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Good evening, I'm Sophia Wensler from the GB Newsroom at 11 o'clock. Your top story this hour. GB News can reveal that more than 5,500 illegal migrants have now arrived in Britain since Labour came to power on the 4th of July. At least 9 small boats made the journey across the Channel today, containing 450 migrants. The total for the year so far is 19,000. It comes after Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer had promised to smash the gangs by setting up a border command unit. A fire at Somerset House in central London has been contained after around 125 firefighters were called to tackle the blaze. Priceless artworks, including a Van Gogh painting, have not been damaged and all public are now safe after the fire ripped through the roof of the historic building earlier. Somerset House will remain closed until further notice as investigations into the fire that damaged the roof is conducted. In other news, in Ireland, a teenage boy has appeared in court charged over the stabbing of an army chaplain outside Renmore Barracks. A 16-year-old boy who cannot be named due to his age has been remanded in custody. GB News' Home and Security Editor Mark White has more.
This short court hearing gave us the firmest indication yet of an apparent terrorist motivation to this attack outside the Irish Army barracks on Thursday evening. The suspect, a 16-year-old boy, according to the court, appeared to have a radical Islamist mindset and possess material linked to the Islamic State terror group. The victim, Father Paul Murphy, was returning to the barracks in his car when he was confronted and stabbed multiple times. Security cameras recorded 20 separate stabbing movements. He suffered multiple deep lacerations. The teenager has been remanded back into custody.
Now, Greater Manchester Police have launched a murder investigation after a man who became trapped in a burning building died in hospital. Officers were called to a fire on Dumbarton Green in Wigan early on Wednesday morning. It's being treated as a suspected arson attack. And anyone travelling to an African country affected by a new strain of Mpox is being urged to get vaccinated. Fresh advice has been issued by the European Centre for Disease and Prevention and Control after the virus emerged in the Congo. More than 500 people have died on the continent so far this year. Sweden's recorded its first case, while Pakistan's trying to establish whether a person there is affected. Those are the latest GB News headlines for now. I'm Sophia Wensler.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Hello and welcome to Headliners. I'm Josh Howie and I've got a whole load of Sunday newspapers to chuck at my hot toddy panellists, Lewis Schaefer and Adam Kumas. Look at those sexy dudes. How are you?
I'm not feeling that sexy, but I appreciate that. Adam says I've got bad breath, and...
No, you know that.
We know that.
Yeah.
Well,
he was talking about your dandruff, actually.
Yes. And the dandruff, too.
And he accused you of wearing glasses.
I think he's just trying to undercut me, because I think he's...
He's threatened.
That's the idea.
Yeah. You're like the younger, hairier...
If you think he is, that you should tweet me or X me at lewisschaefer.co.uk.
Please do not do that. Right, we're going to have a quick look at Sunday's front pages. The Sunday Times. Don't shoot, where conscripts begged the captured Russians. The Sunday Express, how many OAPs will freeze this winter? Mirror, Carl Walker ready to hit Lauren with harassment case. Independent, patients face crisis shortages of vital NHS medication. The Mail on Sunday, 14 billion billed for Keir's shabby union cave-in. And finally, Daily Star, my dead chocolate brother won't stop haunting me. And those are your front pages. First up, Lewis, lots of news on the Sunday Telegraph.
That's right, Sunday Telegraph. It's a big paper. You got a lot of news, and it's Sunday. There's always long stories. Extreme misogyny to be treated as terrorism. Home Secretary. It's funny. Home Secretary unveils plan to combat radicalism of young men online.
And older men. And older grey-haired men.
Yeah, you could put anybody. And what is misogyny?
You specifically.
And me. That's why I think it's so funny. It could be considered me. I mean, anyway, it's basically Yvette Cooper, and she's saying, we've got a problem. The big problem in this country, I'm not going to say what the big problem is. You can't say, but the people out there know exactly what the big problem is in this country.
It's extreme misogyny, right?
And it's another word. And she's saying, instead of them dealing with murderers out on the street, they want to deal with I don't know, with people who shave their head.
Well, okay, the argument would be, Adam, that murders out on the street, arguably, certainly the murder of women, 1 every 3 days in this country, is because of misogyny. Let's deal with it.
I think there's always a polite way to murder someone, and if you are going to do that, don't be misogynistic.
You should be polite. But the truth is that it's obviously very hard to be a woman. I mean, but, it's just like...
from experience, don't you?
Yeah, well, I see the pain in my girlfriend's face, in my girlfriend's face, whatever. And but who are they including in this? Is incels, people who can't even get girls. They're considered misogynist. They're like locked in their basements.
Involuntary service.
So you can't win for losing. And I've got a saying, Josh, which is paranoia is the last hope of the ignored. And that's what this is.
Beautiful.
That's what.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Adam, this is actually a very serious story. There's no doubt that misogyny in this country is absolutely a crime, and violence, sexual violence and physical violence towards women and young women. To make it a terrorist act, to get Prevent involved in schools, that's a whole different thing. I mean, is that really going to actually solve anything?
It's interesting, isn't it? I guess we're reading this article. It doesn't actually say how they're going to go about this. There's concerns about radicalising young men through social media influencers. They mentioned Andrew Tate.
Of course they did.
Yeah, of course, because they want to give them as much airtime as possible. But it is concerning. I think it was interesting. The Home Office have linked other sort of extremist categories, and they've currently got Islamist, right-wing, extreme right-wing, and then animal rights activists as well.
Animal rights back in the day, that was most of the police time.
Yeah.
But the other thing would be, I mean, there could be an upside to this because gender ideology is extremely misogynist in terms of wanting men to compete in women's sports, men to be in female jails. So maybe this could be a way of dealing with that.
No, and you know it won't be. It won't be. Because this is just a list of stuff that bother the people in power right now. And they just want to lump it together. And it's not, you're right, it's not terrorism. It's something else. You can have murder. It's bad. You can have murder. But that's not a terrorist act.
Not all misogynists are
Let's very quickly, the other story here. Adam, if you want to cover this one, clapping for the NHS. Would you mind just reading that?
Yeah, so this is, again, from the Sunday Telegraph. Clapping for the NHS is like a national religion. is dangerous, says Watchdog. And I think this is really interesting. Basically, the story is by saying clapping for the NHS during the pandemic may be dangerous because it puts the NHS beyond criticism.
Yeah, beyond reproach.
Beyond reproach, yes, exactly. So it's one of those things where you look at it on the surface and you go, OK, I can see somebody can make a tepid point about that. But for me, I don't know. I think that... I clapped for the NHS. I got swept up with clapping.
How dare you?
Yeah, exactly. And the thing I liked about the NHS is clapping for the NHS is the fact it was free. It didn't cost me anything.
Yeah.
And I clap all the time. It's very a cheap form of faint praise. I think it.
Did you feel clap shame? There was, I mean, it got to a point where you had to be out.
You had to clap.
Oh, number 48's not out.
Yeah.
With the pans.
With the pads as well.
Yeah. We'll get them.
I'd like to say that I did not clap the NHS, and the
never
fact
remember
is,
that when you're in the hospital.
The fact is, the fact is that the NHS is like a national religion. They made it a national religion in 2012 when it was part of the Olympic ceremony, the whole thing.
Yeah, well.
People love the NHS, and you know who has made it the NHS, who has made it a national religion, is Labour. Is Labour. It's like they're...
Well, it's interesting now that you've got Wes Streeting who's coming in and saying, we've got to get real about it. Anyway, let's move on to the Sunday Times, Adam. There's quite a lot of stories here as well.
Yes. OK, so one of the first stories from the Sunday Times, don't shoot where conscripts beg the...
Could you do that in a Russian accent, please?
Yeah.
Can I do that?
Don't shoot where conflict!
Yeah, that was the
conscript,
I think, wasn't it, from the car insurance compare adverts?
Yeah.
And there are other car insurance adverts available. So this is...
But that one's the best.
That one is the best. This is prisoners telling of chaos and panic when Ukraine invaded. Our commanders ran away, said Kremlin soldiers. And it's a very interesting story. There's an actual account from a 22-year-old who was drafted 8 months ago during sort of compulsory military service. And he thought he was going in for training, and then it turned out he was sent to guard Russia's western border with Ukraine.
Classic. That's what happened to me here. I came in, bit of training. By the way, here's a clicker. Get presenting.
Yeah, chat forever. We've all got balls and chains under the desk.
Yeah. So.
Well, this is not going to end. It is not going to end because.
It will end.
No, it's not going to. Well, it will end eventually. But I think what it is there's lots of countries in Europe who hate Russia, and they just want to be left alone by Russia. They want to make or punish Russia. They want something done. All those Lithuania, Latvia, Estonia, Poland, all those countries just want to be left alone from Russia, and they're not going to let this drop. And that's why we're headed into the third war.
Okay, well, speaking of Third World War, would you mind, Lewis, just funding crisis means golden age of universities is over. Did you manage to...
I managed to read that. No, I didn't. Funding crisis. It means that basically is the
if you went to university, you would have been able to...
The new Labour... The new Labour.
You wore glasses, you would have been able to read that as well, by the way.
If I'd read it, I would have been able to read it. But you said, how was I supposed to read 16? Anyway, the truth is that Labour, they made a lot of promises. The end of austerity is over, and there's no money. And
these are private institutions. Yeah. So the argument is that they're saying the only way to really get money is to raise the cap on the tuition fees, but also to allow more visas. Is that going to happen, Adam?
I think it's interesting. We do know that students who study abroad typically pay a lot more for the same course than people at residence here. So there's a huge expenditure for them. I think,
and they've got to bring over all their families.
Yeah. Oh yes. Well, I think isn't that the case? Very expensive. I have very little sympathy for universities. I think there's too many degrees which are nonsensical. Sort of, they call them Mickey Mouse degrees. And I know this firsthand. I did one myself.
Media studies.
Yeah.
Media studies, film studies, stand-up comedy, a waste of money.
Yeah.
I hope that this is... And if they raise the cap, I hope people come to their senses, realise degrees are not what they used to be, and do something more important.
This is a problem. This is a problem of centralisation, is that the government is involved in everything, including giving these universities money, and they're supposedly private institutions, but the government is involved in money. And
now, Lewis, I'm going to assume you didn't get to read this one because there's so many stories for you.
Yeah.
We faced 400 threats in a single day, revealed Jewish chaplains on campus. Well, I did get to read it. Did you manage to read it?
I did.
It's pretty insane.
It's not insane. We live in a horrible time right now.
Well, but to see it written out like this, a chaplain, 400 threats in one day. He's got a wife, he's 32, he's got a 4-year-old, 3-year-old.
Yeah.
They're getting death threats, rape threats to the entire family.
Yeah, but they're not us.
Who's not us? The people
these
making
two
the
people.
threats. Oh,
No,
they're
these
not
two
you,
people.
so it's OK with you.
No, not me personally. I'm saying they're not British.
Well, this is at Leeds University, and what I find incredible, Adam, here is this little detail here that nobody from the university contacted them to talk about what was going on.
Yeah.
That's mental.
Brush it under the rug, make sure it doesn't happen.
It is not unbelievable. We live in a...
Oh, by the way, here's another little thing. Police arrested 3 people who were released on bail. Great. Well, that's not two-tier policing, is it?
Josh,
rape, death threats to a family. OK, we'll get more onto the comedy. Well, come on then, Lewis, do the mail in a funny way. Do a funny voice.
I can't do it, but you're like too hyper serious. And you should be. We should be. You're totally right to be serious. This is horrible times we live in, and this is £14 billion bill, for Keir's shabby union cave-in, and this has to do with money that's going to GPs to keep them from going on strike, or more strikes, and train drivers to solve the strikes.
Yeah.
And but the truth is that Labour is a union party, and they're invested in this, and we, the people, some of the people voted for them, and because the Tories were so bad that half the Tories voted for reform.
Yeah, half the Tory MPs voted for Labour.
So now we pay. So no, they voted for reform.
We haven't had this yet. This was always going to be a danger, though, Adam, Well, first of all, I don't think what people appreciate is that Labour didn't really have any choice because they have to take the recommendation from the official pay body. So and doctors have arguably been underpaid. But because of that, that is a sort of a green light to greedy unions, some might say. Certainly, train drivers get paid enough. So the idea that they're now threatening more strikes is somewhat maddening, right?
Yeah, I think what's interesting is, like, I think I have a lot more sympathy for sort of doctors, GPs, anyone who works in the NHS. I think train drivers and things like that have sort of less sympathy for myself personally, but I have been affected, as everyone has, with the strikes, with train delays for the last 2 years. And somebody thinks there has to be we need to do something, whether it's pay for it or not. We can't have it as it is.
Or we can do the Ronald Reagan approach, where he fired 10,000 or 14,000 flight people who monitor the flight. What is that called?
There's a third option, though.
And you just fire them. And I'll tell you something. You fire every single doctor in this country.
About doctors, but maybe the trains, and in terms of making them go automatic, the technology is already there.
Well, not even that. Just you get a whole new bunch of it.
I think we're missing a big opportunity here with the NHS in terms of
not that I'm
unions.
suggesting that.
We should just maybe do more clapping.
Yes, of course. But clap for train drivers, yeah?
Clap for drivers.
Right, that's the front page's comprehensively comprehended. In the next section, we'll go behind the fold for vaccine compensation, Middle East investment, and why did the SNP pull the whip? Find out in 2.
Sunday with Michael Portillo from 11, only on GB News.
Controversy howls around a proposal to transform an area of Nuremberg's half-built Nazi Congress Hall into a new opera house. Proponents argue that repurposing the site for cultural use could help to reclaim the space, while opponents believe that it risks glorifying Adolf Hitler. The issue reflects broader tensions in Germany over how to handle the archaeology and architecture of Nazism. To discuss this, I'm joined now by the Telegraph's chief opera critic and the former director of the BBC Proms, Sir Nicholas Kenyon. Lovely to see you back on GB News. As I understand it, they want to put a smallish opera house, I think about 800 seats, within the horseshoe shape. So you would have to walk through, as it were, this historical Nazi territory to get into the opera house. What do you think?
Well, the first thing to say, Michael, is that Nuremberg is such an important centre of German history. And so this site is going to be especially contested. You know, we've had the Nuremberg rallies after the war. We had the Nuremberg trials. Its history goes back centuries. I went there, but I went there to visit the birthplace of Albrecht Dürer. And, of course, as you would know, Wagner's Master Singers of Nuremberg is set there. So I think you've got so many things jostling. I feel absolutely certain in myself that buildings need to move on. They need to be repurposed, they need to be reinvented, but it's not for me to say what weight of tradition would fall on those people going in to a new building in the knowledge of what it used to be.
GB News. The People's Channel.
If you want your news to be straight talking...
This is a nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hello there, I'm Eamon Holmes. Thank you for joining us on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
It's true. You're not wrong. No one will be cancelled. Lovely.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Isabel Webster. Thanks for joining us on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Headliners. I'm Josh Howie. I've still got a load of stories to hand out, and I've still got Lewis Schaefer and Adam Kumas to hand them to. We've just been entertained during the interval by Lewis's sort of sex tech tweets.
People tweet me.
They do, it's disgusting stuff.
It is, because I don't think they realise how serious I am and an evil person. They just love me.
I don't know.
And I love...
It was pure filth, pure filth.
Tweet me at Lewis Schaefer.
Let's start with this Sunday Telegraph piece. And Lewis, please don't get me in trouble with Ofcom.
No, this is good news. There's no problem here. Thousands seek compensation after COVID vaccines left them disabled.
Good news.
It is good news. And you know what? I wasn't vaccinated, and I didn't think the vaccine was going to be dangerous. But it appears to be dangerous, especially this AstraZeneca thing. There have been 16,000 applications for money from the vaccine.
14,000.
Where's 14,000?
14,000 have applied for...
It says here 16,000.
16,000 in total since 1979.
16,000. Okay, whatever. From the vaccine damage payments scheme, it's their way of giving money to the vaccine people, saying, "Hey, don't worry if people start dying. Don't worry if babies are born dead. Whatever it is, we'll pick it up." And that's what's happened now, because companies were taken off the hook.
There's some pretty horrific stories here, Adam, right?
Yeah, it's quite sad. There's some stories about...
Do it in a funny way, please.
I'm going to say, I was vaccinated during the pandemic.
I
got the Pfizer one.
Yay!
I remember the nurse, as she was injecting me, I sort of asked her, I said, "Will this stop me from catching the disease?"
Yeah.
And she literally goes, "Oh, no, you can still catch it." Yeah. I said, "Oh, so what does it do then?" She goes, "Oh, this just gets you access to restaurants and flights to Europe."
Is that what she said?
Yeah, I was like, "Oh, okay."
That's someone was honest in the process.
Yeah, that's what it was. Poland.
Yeah.
At least I didn't care about going on flights.
Yeah, you didn't have anywhere to go.
But... And I tell you what I thought. I thought it's called COVID-19, based after COVID in 2019. And already when they were giving it out, it was 2021. I said, what is the point of taking this thing 2 years later? It's a vaccine. It didn't
I like how you got caught up in the semantics.
Yeah. But there are some obviously there are some serious issues. Obviously there are many people who've been harmed by this.
Yeah.
There's there's lots of interesting points from this. One of them would be how the companies involved, everybody seems to keep on going on about how it was worth it. Like, it saved, they're saying here, it saved millions of lives, and this was within the acceptable safety profile. Now, of course, for the individuals, for these thousands of people, some of the stories that we read about, it obviously wasn't acceptable for them. What I'd like to say about it is, if it felt there was more honesty about the dangers, that people could take those, make that risk, those choices themselves.
Be more informed.
That seems to be a point of contention.
No, you're so wrong, Josh.
It
has nothing to do. You want to take this, because that's not what the purpose of this thing was. The purpose of this is to put money in the pharmaceutical industry's pockets, is for total control, is to see what people could do now in anticipation of what's going on. And we've seen it. We've seen what happened with the riots in the street, how the government shut the people down. It's all about control.
It's worth pointing out as well with this one that AstraZeneca was granted legal indemnity early early during the pandemic, so even if a civil case was made, the UK taxpayers would end up fronting the cost.
Didn't I say that? Did I not just say that?
No, you didn't say that. Adam said it.
No, I said that in the beginning.
No,
I
no,
said
you didn't say that.
the reason this is... no, I'm
We'll
not...
watch it back.
We have actual evidence. Look. I know you don't like things like evidence, but we do have it. One more point, of course, is that this makes people more suspicious, less trusting when this kind of thing, unfortunately, if it ever happens again.
Yeah. You have to be an idiot to trust. An idiot.
Yeah, and that's
was that too extreme?
No, it was good, but it's just I just wonder how your girlfriend's taking it. Right, more Telegraph and Adam, who's turned off the tap?
Yes, so Telegraph, this is Middle Eastern investment in Britain rocked by anti-Muslim riots. So Britain played host to a royal visit last week within Congress setting of the London Gateway Port. When I first read the story, I was a bit sort of swayed, going, interesting. I wonder if, these riots, which were labelled far-right riots or anti-Muslim, would have actually affected it. And as I read through the story, it actually sort of says, these people are investing billions and billions of dollars. They're not actually swayed by a few weeks of unrest.
No, exactly. So this whole idea, Middle East investment in rocked by anti-Muslim, it's a stupid headline, right?
No, it's not a stupid headline, because the truth is, I'm totally rocked by the situation. I mean, granted, I've got no money, but I look good, and I think this is what I think. I think it's if anybody is smart out there, this country, how do I say this in a nice way, is over. It's over.
Okay.
Yeah, they're not concerned.
Thank you so much for that insight into the story. Now, there was $10.5 billion invested last year into the UK from the Middle East. That's a huge amount of money. Obviously, we want that money, don't we?
Yeah. Money's always good.
Yes, but what's interesting also is that it revealed how the UAE and the UK government are kind of being on the outs a little bit. Yeah. And I feel like it seems like they feel like, well, we've given you billions. Can you please be nice to us? Yeah. And our government hasn't been. And one of Keir Starmer's first telephone calls was to the head of the UAE. Yeah. So we want that money. But I'm just saying, far-right rioters... Yeah. Just, guys, come on, we want that dosh.
It isn't the problem with the far-right rioters. The people moved to this country, as I did 24 years ago, because it was England.
Right? That's where you came from?
It was England. It was England. So the problem isn't that they're far-right. You're moving to a country where there are far-right rioters.
Oh, I see. That was part of why you moved here.
Yes.
Yeah, OK, fair enough. Right. OK, let's move on to the Sunday Times next, Lewis. And is dealing in reality too much for the SNP?
SNP, good news. This is really good news. SNP takes... you got to look at things in a bright way, Josh. This is a mistake. This is a mistake that you've made.
No, you're an optimist.
I'm now an optimist.
You're an SNP half-glass full type guy. Yeah,
because things are so bad. The SNP takes the whip away from a member of Scottish Parliament, John Mason, for remarks on Gaza violence. And he said something
terrible, wasn't it?
Yeah, well, he said something nice about Israel.
Yeah, how dare
he? And the whip, which is the authorization to be a part of the party, was taken away, saying you're not an SNP guy.
So what did he say, Adam, that was so contentious and evil? Did he have it there?
Yes. He said the quote, if Israel wanted to commit genocide, they would have killed 10 times as many.
Yeah, so facts, basically.
Yeah. Yes, and I think what's really interesting is John Mason hasn't seemed to have actually lost faith in the party despite his whip being taken away. He says, look, it's been taken away for a fixed period of time, so not permanently. And he says, he sort of expresses desires. He said, my main desire is that Scotland and the UK should be acting as peacemakers and as Norway has done in the past. Cheering on one side or the other does not really help anyone. We need to get more people talking to each other. Yeah. So I think that explained his reasoning a little bit. Maybe he, I don't know, if I'm playing devil's advocate, maybe he could have said it in a slightly friendlier way, but the sentiment of it remains.
The point is, it's a war, Lewis, number one, right?
Yes.
Now, this is what the SNP Westminster leader, former, is Ian Blackford, this is what he accused him of glorifying killing and said he should resign. He said 40,000 plus dead in Gaza, and you tweet this. By the way, that's Hamas numbers. And you are not fit for public office. You're an embarrassment and not fit to represent anyone. You glorify killing and murder with your obtuse comment. This guy sounds like a crank.
Who, this Mason guy?
No, the guy who's talking about Mason guy.
Yeah, because, well, first of all, the SNP is a party against England.
No.
It is? Yes, it is. Is they don't want to be...
Scottish national policy.
No. Wait, I don't understand your irony, and can you keep the humour down? Is that... this guy's trouble, is that that's what the SNP is. So this guy is saying something that goes against what the Scottish SNP party believes in. Remember the last leader was Hamza Yousaf, whatever the guy's name is.
Let's move on. Right, moving on to the Telegraph. And you should never give in to terrorists. I mean, peace activists, Adam.
Yes, so this is from the Sunday Telegraph. Barclays warned it risks damaging its reputation by capitulating to demands of pro-Palestine activists. So basically, Barclays has been warned that it risks damaging its reputation by capitulating to demand from activists to boycott Israel's. Well, it's always best to repeat things, isn't it? Yeah. To make sure things are clear. Yeah. So basically, this is at least 20 branches of the bank have been attacked over the summer by pro-Palestinian.
But that's not right, so of course. That's fine.
Mostly peaceful.
Peaceful attacks. Peaceful smash windows.
The audience were on TV. The audience doesn't understand your subtle humor. Okay. When you said mostly peaceful, you're making a reference to the lies that they say about
but
these
I believe that the people watching are not.
Yeah, they're intelligent. They're in they get it. They get it.
I think these sort of protests have been probably about as effective as the Just Stop Oil protests, smashing things up and covering things in orange paint. I don't know. I do have an opinion about this. My opinion is if you do have some agreement with Barclays or any other bank or whatever it is for whatever reason, just don't bank with them. And you have that freedom, maybe. But
that's a crazy idea.
Yeah, that's lovely.
What do you think about this? But this is a serious story about Barclays, whether or not they give in to these cranks, which are very few in number, really.
Well, no, they're not. Not very few in number.
Relatively.
And they represent a huge number of people. It's now 6% of the population who are directly. It's a huge number, and especially they don't want to be. Nobody wants to be known as a bad guy. And I understand what Barclays' position is, but are they going to be supported by whatever the government is, the Labour government? Are they going to be supported? We don't know. I feel. It could bring their company down if enough people.
Right, I think they're going to be okay, mate. Oh. But we've made it halfway together. We'll make it to the end together. Come back for Not So Pride, BBC editing, and who is leading the donkeys. Find out in 2.
Hello there, welcome to your latest GB News weather forecast. Over the next 24 hours, high pressure largely holding on across the UK, keeping it fairly dry and settled. A few showers still in the flow, and we can see that on the bigger picture. Generally low pressure to the north, high pressure extending in from the southwest, keeping most weather systems at bay for the rest of the weekend. Through this evening and overnight, largely dry across much of the country. A few showers still possible across parts of Scotland, northern England, down into Wales and the West Country. But most places dry as we head through the night, and towns and cities generally holding up in double figures, but in the countryside dipping down to around 7 or 8 degrees. So a bit of a fresh start to Sunday, but there'll be plenty of sunny spells. Showers, though, possible in a few places, most prevalent across central and northern parts of Scotland. Temperatures here first thing Sunday morning around 10 to 12 Celsius, so on the fresh side, best of the sunshine towards Aberdeenshire. Northern Ireland, Northern England also a few showers possible, largely in the west. The east generally dry, and 1 or 2 showers for Wales and the West Country. Parts of the Midlands over into East Anglia, South East England, plenty of sunshine to start Sunday. Through the day, well, that high pressure generally keeps things dry and settled for many parts. More in the way of sunny spells for parts of Wales, western parts of England, Northern Ireland that saw quite a cloudy picture on Saturday. A few showers still possible across Scotland, but they do start to ease later in the day. Breezy here, temperatures on the cool side, 15, 16 Celsius. In the sunshine, rising into the low 20s, highs around 25 Celsius for London. Then it's all changed slowly through Monday as a weather system moves in from the Atlantic. Outbreaks of rain pushing in across Northern Ireland. The winds picking up through the Irish Sea as well. Gales developing later on in the day. Best of the sunshine holding on across the southeast. Temperatures here around 25 or 26 Celsius and staying unsettled right through much of the week. See you soon.
I'm Stephen Dixon, and thanks for joining us on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Your lunchtime update on the stories that matter across the UK.
From breaking news and insightful analysis, inspiring stories and lively debates. You're comparing yourself to a former Prime Minister.
Which is it? Stay informed, stay updated, stay entertained.
I just don't know how anyone would not want to be there.
Every weekday from midday.
We are Good Afternoon Britain. only on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
I'm Michael Portillo. This is GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Arlene Foster on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Headliners, where we just got all monkeypox, right?
Yeah.
It was good. It was a good little interval. Adam, let's get straight into the Mail on Sunday story about red flags.
Yeah, a huge lot of red flags. So this is the story about the Daily Mail. The founder of Surrey Pride, 40, who was patron of the controversial LGBT plus education charity that encouraged toddlers to question their gender, faces 37 child sex abuse charges, including rape and voyeurism. So obviously a very tough story. I think this does bring up a wider conversation about the recent push to embed gender and gender identity and sexual orientation into sort of certain organisations like primary schools, and what sort of dangers this can bring up, and maybe the lack of pushback. I don't think we're as bad as they are in the States, but I think if we're not careful, that could creep in.
Yeah, I mean, the charity they were involved with now that seems to have been closed down is called Educate and Celebrate. It also had trans comic Jordan Gray, who was famous. She was part of it, whenever you want to get into a big argument about that. And a series of controversies where they wanted to replace Sir and Miss and whatnot. It's interesting, Lewis, because I'm trying not to get into too much trouble here.
I'm waiting for the question.
OK. Safeguarding needs to be across everywhere, right? And the point is that people will utilise these spaces because, they will find these spaces like they did with the church, like they did. So some people have come out today online and been pointing out and go, oh, look at it, pride and the sexualisation of kids at these events and pointing to that as being some sort of indicator. But the point, you have to be vigilant everywhere, right? No one gets a free pass.
I agree with that, and I think we all agree with that, but I think the truth is LGBT are like sexual characteristics, and you're bringing somebody with sexual characteristics into the school. I myself am a plus, so I know all about the LGBT.
Yes, plus meaning
plus, and
years, isn't it?
And it means whatever it means.
17 plus.
But, so on one hand, you're totally right. We need to be careful. But on the other hand, this is the police that have made these charges, and you can't trust anybody. The police may be right. No, I'm not...
Okay. Let's not get into...
You're assuming this...
We're not allowed to get into the actual
exactly.
police itself.
And I'm doing your job for you, because you cannot assume that this is true. You can't assume it. Okay. We don't know. All I know is this guy...
You're actually doing the opposite of my job.
No, I'm not.
We're going to move on really quickly. Moving on to The Observer. And shocking news that political satirists might actually start doing their job. Lewis. No,
it's not.
it's not that one at all. But still, let's do that. Labour is fair game. Let's do that one.
Where is that one? I don't know what number
that
is.
Number 13, mate.
Number 13. How do we skip it? We're skipping around.
Come back. That's what we're doing.
All right, we'll come back.
Mate.
We've never skipped before. I've never been on a show where we've skipped before.
Oh, we don't play by the rules here.
Look at how great my hair looks. It looks
come on.
Anyway, Labour is fair game, led by donkeys, will hold the government to account. This is in The Guardian. They want to make it seem like they're like all these... This is led by donkeys, is a satirical artist collectives, and they're the people
Can
who...
you say the word donkeys, please?
Donkeys.
OK, you said donkeys for us.
Donkeys. I don't think I've ever used that term, donkeys. The place I want to move to has donkeys in the street.
That's interesting.
In the street. Anyway, it's in Nevada. Anyway, the place I'm going to be exiled to is going to be... Anyway, the truth is that they had Liz Truss, who was our prime minister for 44 days.
Greatest prime minister that we've ever had.
We don't know. She was basically 49.
Well, we do know because it happened, Lewis.
She could have been sandbagged by the powers that be because it's very,
Because she nearly bankrupt the country.
This is the thing about you, Josh, is you believe all these lies.
Okay, it's true. I'm a big lie believer.
And so they're up. You're a lie believer. They're up. So she's up. She's been invited on a program to do a little lecture.
Gullible, by the way.
Gullible. There's no word for gullible in the dictionary. Did you know that, Adam?
Very good joke.
have you heard that joke?
No, it's good. It's good.
It's an old, it's like one of the oldest jokes.
Write your own material.
Anyway, a banner came down while she's giving a lecture saying, I crash the economy. And that was supposed to be funny.
It was of the leftists, wasn't it?
The lady was nice enough to go and appear on their Fakakta program, on their Fakakta show at the Edinburgh Festival, which we've been to.
But it wasn't them who did it. It was these activists.
Yes.
So what you're saying is if like they were pranking her, it was activists who separately pranked her at.
Yeah, they managed to get access to the thing.
Yeah.
But the point of it is that this group, there was an interesting article written this week in Spike, but where the point was it's very easy to attack the Tory government because, of course, they were ripe for. But the fact is that these satirists never go after. I wouldn't say hard, but their own tribe, shall we say? Now, maybe these led by donkeys, they've said, "Oh no, we will do something about Labour." Well, when are you going to do it? There's so much stuff out there. When are they ever going to be brave and not try and appeal to their sort of little bubble?
Playing devil's advocate, it's only been 6 weeks.
No, but it's not like Labour hasn't done anything that you couldn't base anything satirical on in the past. It's support for the gender ideology stuff about putting men in women's prisons and whatnot. There's so much stuff they've done.
Because basically, maybe they don't care. Maybe they don't care about Labour.
This is an opportunity for Liz Truss. She could have just done what Nigel did and laughed it off. Like, it's not the end of the world. You've got a big cabbage down. Laugh it off and go, yeah, you got me, guys. And then it's a non-story. If she stands up and she goes, I'm not having this, then they're getting the reaction. You've got to laugh at these things.
To be honest, I think that either way it would have been a story, but I just think it's pathetic of them. And let's see what they do. They say
this is the Guardian trying to make good about it, trying to say we're good too. We people who attack them are good people. They're not.
Let's see if they're brave and do some jokes about
Louis Schaefer.
About like Islamic extremists. Then I'll have some respect for the satirical
if they get into
skills.
government, then they might do.
Well, all right. Observe next, and the verdict on free schools is in, Lewis.
Oh, I'm again.
Going back now.
Hold on a second.
Hold on. Here we go.
This is this free schools things, which I've totally missed because my kids were taken away from me. But
Theory.
It's a comedy show, Lewis, as you repeat.
That was like really extreme.
But they talk to you now, and that's what's important.
That's important.
They came back to you.
Because you know what the best thing about it is, and I think the English people are right, is that when I grew up, I thought you've got to spend a lot of time with your kids. But the less time you spend with your kids, the more interested they are in you.
Yeah, they like you now.
When you're older, they go to the pub with you. They go see your comedy show. Anyway, this is Michael Gove, who was head of something, and he set up these free schools. He set up these free schools, which were supposed to help people in the community by being free or something. I don't know. Didn't know.
Schools are free, but yeah.
All schools are free. Yeah. And there's a new study that came out that says, from the University College of London, that said that they didn't help other schools that were around these free schools.
Yeah, so that was the idea. The idea was, Adam, give parents in the area choice.
Yeah.
The idea is it would hopefully then force other schools to up their game.
Yeah.
But what it led to was less pupils in some of those schools, so they got less funding.
Yeah.
And arguably it didn't really help the impact on raising standards.
Yes, absolutely. Fewer pupils, fewer resources. So it's had the sort of like maybe the opposite effect. I don't know how you fix that.
You fix it by not having the government involved. It's like saying, it's like McDonald's is not helping Burger King by opening up next door.
Okay, I think the government should be involved. It's
too much centralization.
My children went to a free school and it was great.
Is that right?
So Sunday Mirror now, and Adam, please repeat the words the BBC cut out.
I'm not going to do that because I think I'm the only non-Jewish person on this panel, so I don't want to get.
Stop denying you're Jewish. Why do you tell people you're not Jewish?
I'm not.
Be proud of it, Adam.
Thank you.
It's a bit weird, really.
We are going to the séance afterwards, aren't we?
Look at the guy. Is the guy Jewish?
Thank you. Yes. Take a good look. Yeah, BBC forced to pull Miriam Margolyes' shocking three-word remark from radio show. So BBC bosses have been forced to remove a three-word comment she said, which was referring to a Charles Dickens character, Fagin.
Yep.
And she described him as Jewish and vile.
Yes.
And this has obviously caused controversy. When I first read this, I was like, that's a nasty way or disgusting way to describe it. And then I was like, I Googled her and I remembered her. She's a kooky woman. She's always in the news for saying things. I think
she swears a lot.
She swears a lot.
That's her shtick, basically.
Yeah, she's got a few marbles missing and she's Jewish.
Yep.
Which I was like, OK, does that give her a pass? I didn't know how to feel about it.
Yeah.
And as I'm not Jewish, I think you guys...
Yeah, we're not massively proud of her.
No, but it has...
To be honest, some people would say maybe she's very anti-Israel. That's fine, you know, whatever. But the problem with this is when she said it, it got a laugh. It didn't get any pushback from Kirsty Walk,
which is on her.
At the time. The BBC have since apologised and said it should have been challenged at the time. Yeah. And of course, you can have. I'm not saying necessarily she is, but you can have self-hating Jews. I'm looking at Louis Schaefer.
No, I'm a Louis Schaefer-hating Jew. I don't hate Jews.
It's the other way around.
Yeah.
But the point is, it's arguably an offensive thing to say. She then sort of talks about how she says, didn't know, without question, I didn't know Jews like that then. Sadly, I do now. It's not. If she said it about any other ethnicity, I think the furore would be even greater.
Sorry, Lewis, do you think if it was a black person saying black and vile, if you were a non-black person saying, are you supposed to say that? Wouldn't you'd get pulled in for being like a white saviour and that sort of thing?
Yeah.
So do you think maybe that was what Kirsty was saying, or was Kirsty just not care about the Jewish?
Well, she didn't talk about it.
She didn't talk about it, and I think people listen to it. I think what makes here's the point. The point is, no Jews are vile. That's what makes this sentence so wrong. For her to say
you're vile, but
she said the character is Jewish and vile, and then she said, sadly I see. I've never met a Jewish criminal or a Jewish bad person.
She didn't say Jewishly vile, did she?
Yeah.
The thing is, Dickens, even Dickens was ashamed of that character and thought it was too anti-Semitic and regretted it in later life. But we have to go to it is interesting, but I just want to say the Mirror there just followed the whole thing up about how great she was and dealing with bullies and stuff like that. Massive whitewash there from the Mirror. Pathetic. Just the final section to go now, and you know we've got some treats for you. Bumble Fumble, Potato Apocalypse, and who would you make a friendship bracelet for? See you in 2.
GB News Breakfast. Every day from 6 a.m.
Now, we've got a story and a half to tell you and bring you now. Our very own GB News political correspondent, who we love very much, Catherine Foster, joins us in the studio, and she's smiling, but she wasn't smiling for the past few days.
2 of her sons, Matthew and Andrew, were reported missing in Bali.
I got a text from a friend saying, can you give us a call, a bit worried about them. Then spoke to a girl they'd befriended who was in Sweden, but they'd met on their travels. And she told me that they'd gone up the mountain. By the time I found out, they'd been missing for 30 hours. They'd gone up the mountain on the Tuesday night, British time. This was the Thursday morning, without a guide. And they'd told her it was really hard. And she told them to turn back, but they hadn't. And they'd sent screenshots from this app with this trail that they were following on the app, screenshots of the app in case there was a problem, and a Snapchat of a Matthew avatar at the top. And she said, I know they made it to the top because I could see that his phone had nearly died. But the trail had actually closed many years ago. So the app, we will need to make sure that that gets taken off the app. But, you know, technology saved them in the end because it was the screenshots and it was the messages that they'd sent, but they should never have been without a guide.
But what were you doing during those 30 hours that Mum couldn't, when the phone died and Mum couldn't get in touch? Where were you? What were you up to?
Well, we were trying to figure out the best course of action, because it started to pour with rain. The amount of rain created a river, like a stream.
Yeah.
We were like, let's follow the stream downhill, and then the sun set, and we just had to like sleep in the bushes in the jungle.
GB News, the People's Channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/your-say. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
Join me, Neil Oliver, every Sunday night at 6 p.m. on GB News. And if an hour is not nearly enough for you, go to gbnews.com for special extended episodes online every Friday at 9 p.m, where we can truly get into the nitty-gritty of what's going on. GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Headliners, and please do not send any more fan pornography to this channel. Lewis is going to be kicking off with The Observer, and no doubt the death of love shall be mentioned.
Is that right? Where am I? What number is that? Bumble. Oh, okay. Oh, this is great. This is more good news. Bumble fumbled. Online dating app struggle as people swear off swiping. This is about Bumble and Tinder. They're all having problems because, you know, they try to make a big deal about why I didn't read far.
What do you say? You're like 45 on Bumble?
I've been on there, and I went on a date. I went on one date with a girl, and my girlfriend had left me, and that's all I've done, honestly.
What was your profile like?
What
did you use your old fat photo?
No, I tried to be, but I don't tell people. I wasn't really on TV at the time.
If you were single today, Lewis, your profile would be very interesting. I only eat meat. I don't eat Western medicine.
I don't brush my teeth.
Looking for a person who doesn't mind bad breath.
Yeah.
And I would do that now. Back in the day, I would settle for anybody, but now when people don't.
Well, Adam, you must have been on the. You're are you Gen Z? What are you?
Millennial, I think. Millennial, but like not in a whiny way.
No.
I've always been a boomer at heart. I think, I think this is interesting. I think people are finally wising up after many years that dating apps suck and they're not good. Nobody enjoys them. They're still probably one of the worst ways to meet somebody. It's very impersonal. It makes people very disposable. And what's interesting about this story, the Bumble fumble specifically, in May of this year, Bumble launched a feminist Tinder. Basically launched a campaign, an anti-celibacy advertising campaign, saying, basically telling people, promoting hookup culture and saying, celibacy is the answer, go out and
sleep around.
And I think there was a swift backlash to this saying, you know, it's our bodies, our choices. We don't need to sleep around. This is not. You don't push this
from boring people.
Do you know what the problem is? The problem isn't that. The problem is that women are incredibly unhappy, and when they go online, they're looking for a really good-looking guy now. It's not like it used to be, where for every guy with no legs, there's a girl with no arms waiting for him, and that's the people got together. Now,
what was that?
That's what life was back in the day. Even Louis Schaefer, girls used to like me. Now, unless you're like you're tall and handsome
both
and
legs
dark
as well.
Yeah, and both legs.
I've got three.
Now Josh found somebody. Sorry. Is that why don't dating apps work? Because women want the very top guy. The very top guy there are very few really top guys.
The top guy isn't on Bumble either.
And more than no, they might be on Bumble, but they're not on Bumble to find love. No. And the rest of the other guys, and this is why people are dropping off. The rest.
By the way, I was amused that there's a gay cruising app called Sniffies.
Is that true?
I'm like you pretending. Look at you pretending you didn't know that. That's funny. Right, Sunday Telegraph, Adam, and why shouldn't we count our chips?
Yes, so this is from the Sunday Telegraph. Britain is heading towards potato Armageddon unless science can save us. This is a story about basically the potatoes. If we don't intervene with science, that it could potentially...
The death of potato.
Exactly. Could basically go extinct, or if we're not careful. There was a £13.5 million budget thrown into this project called the Tuber-Gene, and this is supposed to be revolutionise breeding approaches to potatoes, reduce things like bruising, making potatoes quicker to cook, reduce the waste, and transform them.
It's a really just very long, boring article.
It's very boring. I don't know why it's here.
I really regret choosing it now.
Yeah,
I was reading it. I was like smacking my head at the table. Let's move on to the mail.
No, can I just make one point about this, which is about potatoes, which aren't the worst food. The worst food might be rice or pasta, but it's not a good food. You shouldn't be eating potatoes. You definitely shouldn't be frying potatoes.
Thank you. Mail on Sunday now, Lewis, with more reasons why Taylor Swift is destroying humanity.
I love Taylor Swift. I don't really love her, but I'm forced to watch her because you watch a couple of them.
I know, my wife's obsessed with her.
Oh, wow.
No, she's a good... Look, I like her song.
She's pretty good. There are a couple of songs that are really good. Anyway, how Taylor Swift made friendship bracelets cool again with royals and Olympians wearing them, but critics say that they're not so eco-friendly, and businesses report beads shortages. I had to look up what a friendship, because I just thought that they were those...
Never had a friendship bracelet.
Never had.
So sad.
Never had a friend.
What sad. This is meant to be a happy, upbeat show. Now you're making people cry. Now they're going to start sending you in friendship bracelets.
Yeah, you know what? Not bad. You can send it in. It's what is the address? Go Google where GB News is. Or
Don't send anything in.
Yeah.
LewisSchaefer.com.
Who would you make a friendship bracelet for, Adam?
Oh, I'd probably...
Lewis Schaefer.
No, I'd probably have to do it with my girlfriend. That's one of those cheesy things. Well, I've got my girlfriend now, and if I didn't do that, she'd be like very upset.
Okay, but this is an interesting... I mean, look, arguably, it's good in terms of this creative, and you know, my wife and daughter make them. I think it's nice. Right, show is nearly over. Let's take another quick look at Sunday's front pages. The Sunday Times: don't shoot, we're conscripts, begged the captured Russians. Sunday Express: how many OAPs will freeze this winter? Mirror: Carl Walker ready to hit Lauren with harassment case. Independent: patients face crisis shortages of vital NHS medication. Mail on Sunday: 14 billion bill for Keir's shabby union caving. And finally, the Daily Star: my dead chuckle brother won't stop haunting me. And those were your front pages. That's all we have time for. Thank you to my guests Lewis Schaefer and Adam Kumas. We're back tomorrow at 11 p.m. with some Stephen Allen hosting and Jonathan Cogan and a new dude called Josh Howie on the panel. If you're watching 5 a.m, stay tuned for breakfast.
My breath isn't that bad.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there, welcome to your latest GB News weather forecast. Over the next 24 hours, high pressure largely holding on across the UK, keeping it fairly dry and settled. A few showers still in the flow, and we can see that on the bigger picture. Generally low pressure to the north, high pressure extending in from the southwest, keeping most weather systems at bay for the rest of the weekend. Through this evening and overnight, largely dry across much of the country. A few showers still possible across parts of Scotland, northern England, down into Wales and the West Country. But most places dry as we head through the night, and towns and cities generally holding up in double figures. But in the countryside, dipping down to around 7 or 8 degrees. So a bit of a fresh start to Sunday, but there'll be plenty of sunny spells. Showers, though, possible in a few places, most prevalent across central and northern parts of Scotland. Temperatures here first thing Sunday morning around 10 to 12 Celsius, so on the fresh side, best of the sunshine towards Aberdeenshire. Northern Ireland, Northern England also a few showers possible, largely in the west. The east generally dry, and 1 or 2 showers for Wales and the West Country. Parts of the Midlands over into East Anglia, south